Damn, the might be wuthering. There's been something like 35 film adaptations of Wuthering Heights, and Emerald Fennell is gonna give us the 36th, whether we like it or not. Yes, the director of Promising Young Woman and Saltburn is back with another provocative movie, this time an adaptation of Emily Bronte's classic novel. But if you thought the director that made Barry Keoghan slurp Jacob Elordi's bathwater wouldn't bring her own spin to Wuthering Heights, you'd be sorely and sadly mistaken. Margot Robbie plays Catherine Earnshaw, a well-to-do girl who, when she was a kid, her father took in the urchin boy she named Heathcliff. Thus, a sort of forbidden and unrequited romance blooms between them as they grow up. Now older, Catherine and Heathcliff have a special bond, but soon Catherine fields the marriage proposition from the wealthier Edward, which leaves Heathcliff out in the cold. So he disappears and returns after 5 years, a wealthier, more dashing, and more cruel man. Soon the long-simmering passion between them ignites and boils over, threatening to irrevocably change both of their lives. I've never read Wuthering Heights. I didn't read it in high school, and I haven't read it on my own. I was always more of a Jane Eyre guy. Shout out Charlotte Bronte. But I'm familiar with the story and previous adaptations, none of which I've ever really liked. But I am familiar with Emerald Fennell, who has branded herself as a provocateur, someone who's finally going to do the Wuthering Heights where Catherine and Heathcliff fuck. But Fennell, who won an Oscar for her screenplay for Promising Young Woman, seems to have a, how should we say, person who didn't read the book and is now trying to do a half-assed book report grasp of Wuthering Heights, because she imports none of the race consciousness, the pricklier themes, even the whole second half of the novel. She's only interested in the forbidden fruit, the heaving chests, the sweaty bodies. Basically, the wine mom romance novel version of this story. And that would be totally fine. I would love a camp version of Wuthering Heights. But that's not what this is, because Fennell is clearly caught between garish melodrama and a more sincere, stodgy tragedy romance. But if you've seen her last films, you know how empty her provocations really are. Her sense of kink and kinkiness begins and ends at fluids. Bodily, animal, even food. The extent of her provocations are juxtaposing carnal pleasure with unnatural delights and squishiness. She really likes the crispy soundscape of a hand going into jello, or smashing egg yolks, or even the slime trail of a snail. It would be playful if it wasn't so garish, and its garishness would achieve camp if it wasn't so desperate to be taken seriously. So Fennell wants it both ways. She wants to do a punk rock provocation to get the wine moms to cream their pants in the theater seats, but she also wants to do a classic adaptation to get those said wine moms weeping at the end. And the results are kind of disastrous, because you swing wildly from montages set to Charlie XCX songs and belabored scenes of longing and lovemaking and lusting. But through all the artifice, this Wuthering Heights comes out surprisingly chaste. Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie equip themselves decently at the start of the film, where it's all looks and hushed breaths and heaving chests and quivering lips. But in the second half, once they finally consummate, once the tongues and the sweat and the bodies merge, well, the two actors somehow amazingly have less chemistry, because the intensity and the forbiddenness of their lovemaking is all but brushed over. It has none of the foreplay and the tension and the thrill of two people finally coming together after years and years. Which is a shame, because if Fennell really set out to make the type of provocation she wanted to make, then she should have just gone full bore trash. I'm talking romance novels from the 80s and 90s, the ones with Fabio on the cover. I'm talking wind blowing the hair. I'm talking big operatic swings. I'm talking pure campy melodrama. And that might have even meant some goddamn nudity. Give us these two hot people fucking with a capital F. The best template for this type of movie are the films of Baz Luhrmann, specifically his Romeo and Juliet and his Moulin Rouge. Both are about doomed romances. Both center actual flesh and blood characters and have the opulence ultimately be secondary. And maybe the film this most wants to be like is Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette. There's an anachronistic period movie, but filtered through pop aesthetic and pop songs. I just reviewed the movie Pillion, and there's a film that balances the humor and sadness of a love story while also emphasizing kink and lust and desire in an honest way. And it didn't need ridiculous sets and costumes to do it. So after 3 films, it's clear Emerald Fennell is no Baz Luhrmann or Sofia Coppola or even Harry Leighton, the director of Pillion. And it's doubly disappointing because she's one of the few female filmmakers nowadays who's getting blank checks. I want to see female filmmakers reach out and grab every chance they get from big studios. But a frustrating and baffling bore like this Wuthering Heights just ain't gonna cut it. It's kind of the cinematic equivalent of edging. But the one thing that Emerald Fennell forgets is that no matter how long the edging goes, eventually it has a goddamn climax. Wuthering Heights is a deeply unsexy adaptation of a classic novel. Director Emerald Fennell fails to update it with her weak provocations. She can't decide whether it's a campy melodrama or a stodgy tragedy. The end result is a baffling bore. I give Wuthering Heights a regrettable 2 out of 5 stars. If you like this review, please like and subscribe or follow me on Letterboxd at RamirezS316. There is one bright spot in this movie, and that is Alison Oliver's performance as the pitiful Isabella. And of course, Emerald Fennell reduces her to being on all fours and barking like a dog.